It's the question that won't go away for Ryan Day, and we're not the only ones asking it anymore. Welcome to the Point a Minute show on the Voice of College Football, where we average one outstanding point for every minute of video. My name is Cliff, and with me, as always, is Mac, and there's 2 good points already, and we're not even a minute in. We've been asking for months, can Ryan Day, a head coach with a 56-8 record, really be on the hot seat? Seems outlandish, but Bruce Feldman, best-selling author and Fox Sports reporter, is calling it, and he's kicking it up a notch. We're not just talking beating Michigan and winning the Big Ten, but it's national championship or bust for Ryan Day and the Buckeyes. Feldman appeared on Colin Cowherd's The Herd and made several interesting points. So let's take a look at a couple here. Feldman said, people forget they came within a field goal of probably winning the national title when they were playing the CFP against Georgia. I mean, they were up double digits. Stroud played great and played like what he's doing in the NFL. End quote from Feldman. So, Mac, what happened in that game and why did Ohio State lose?
It was a fourth quarter collapse by the Buckeye defense. They had been pretty stout all game long, but then just fell apart in that fourth quarter. And a lot of the analysis is that Marvin Harrison Jr. got, knocked into concussion protocol, and then Ohio State's offense really couldn't do anything without him. Maybe that makes their offense a little bit one dimensional. I don't know. But either way, I really think it was the defense that actually kind of sealed the defeat for them, although technically it was the special teams that sealed the defeat, but that's really what it was. Is the defense was their collapse in the fourth quarter. That's what happened.
Okay, now according to Feldman in this interview, in 2022, if the rankings had been just a little bit different, it could have changed everything we know right now. So Feldman said, quote, Ohio State would have beaten TCU. I think we would all agree on that, he says, and Ryan Day would have a national title. Feldman goes on saying a national title in 22 would have taken the pressure off of Ryan Day in 23, and he would have beaten Michigan in 23. But now this seems backwards to me because if Feldman is right, doesn't that mean in reality the pressure on Ryan Day this year has quadrupled? And doesn't that mean he's ripe for a devastating 2024?
I mean, pressure isn't the only thing that would make a coach have a bad year. There are a lot of factors play into that. I think where I'd push back on Feldman's point, I mean, yes, they would have beaten TCU. I think that's pretty much a fact. The only thing that would make that more of a fact is if they had actually played. They would have won the national title. Maybe that would have taken some pressure off. But, Buckeye Nation really does expect Ohio State to beat Michigan every single year. That's their goal, is to beat Michigan and play for national titles every single year. And if you lose to Michigan, I don't know. I mean, if we had lost to Ohio State and yet won the national championship, I think I'd still be pretty happy. I think, I would just kind of feel a little, twinge of ouch, that kind of sucked. But we won the national championship, so I don't really care. I don't think it's like that for them, but I'm not about to put words in their mouth and just kind of assume. Where I would start to push back on Bruce Feldman, though, is I don't know that they necessarily would have beaten Michigan had they won the Natty in 22, because Michigan was still on a mission in 23. Um, and Ohio State was still going through a lot of changes. I mean, Kyle McCord was still their quarterback. The offensive line was still their offensive line. The defense was great. The defense did very, very well last season, and they did very well in 22 as well. It was just against certain teams, they really didn't. Although in 2023, they did much better against Michigan than in 2022 against Georgia. So that being said, I don't necessarily agree that just because they won a national championship in 22, that means all of a sudden they're beating Michigan in 23. Michigan was still on a mission. There are two teams at play here. Just because one team seems to be doing well doesn't mean the other team can't have a say about it.
Fair enough. I wanted to wrap up the rest of Feldman's comments here, kind of summarize them. But Feldman, it sounds kind of like us. He's sort of scratching his head because Ryan Day is 56-8. He's got 3 Big Ten championships. They kind of swapped. He had 3, and then Harbaugh had his 3, but he doesn't have any national championships. So even when he was beating Michigan, he couldn't win at the national level. He lost his star quarterback in McCord. He brought on UCLA's, I think, failing head coach is fair to say. Chip Kelly was failing as head coach at UCLA. He's bringing in Chip Kelly to be the OC at Ohio State, and Feldman thinks Chip Kelly is the critical release valve for the pressure on Ryan Day. But the Booster Collective has spent millions bringing in top players, so that's an increase on the pressure. But there's also this 12-team playoff hurdle this year. So our friend Big Ten Ted says it might rest on the shoulders of Will Howard, the Ohio State QB this year, at least the presumed QB1. So, Mac, if Ryan Day's future depends on winning the national championship, and the national championship depends on Will Howard, what happens if Will Howard gets injured?
Well, if Will Howard gets injured, I think they're in a lot of trouble. Um, I don't think that their quarterback room, from what I understand, I don't think their quarterback room has a lot of talent, but I think it's kind of a mess. And I think it's a lot of raw talent. Although I don't know a lot about Julian Sayin from Alabama. That might be an interesting idea. Um, their 5-star quarterback recruit that they brought in, can't remember his name right now. They're obviously really excited about him. Aaron Noland. They're excited about him. Think he's still probably pretty raw right now. So in terms of winning a national title, yeah, it's probably Will Howard or bust. My question is though, so if Chip Kelly is the piece that Ohio State has been missing, but we talked about when I was on the Voice of College Football call-in show last week, TJ and I were talking about Ryan Day as being a good football coach, but not a good head coach. And I feel like that's the same thing with Chip Kelly, though. You know, he's a good coach. He's a good X's and O's kind of guy, but is he a good leader of men? And we've also talked about here and on our show that Ohio State is trying to buy a team of all stars rather than maybe build a team or develop a team. You know, and I'm not saying that they're doing it the wrong way, obviously, because if they've got the money and they can get the talent, sure, by all means, give it a shot. But if they're buying all of this all-star talent and Ryan Day isn't a guy that from a culture standpoint can create cohesion between all of the players, then what does it matter? And at that point, what does Chip Kelly matter either? I mean, I know Chip Kelly and Ryan Day have a relationship, a prior relationship, and that's great. Maybe that'll create some cohesion between him and his offensive coordinator. Um, but if they can't develop a culture that is player focused, then it really doesn't matter. If the relationship that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day have doesn't extend to the greater culture of the program, then none of this really matters. And so I'm questioning why Chip Kelly or why Bruce Feldman sees anything in Chip Kelly that would point to Ohio State having a better than expected, or not better than expected, but having this national championship season, when the rest of us are kind of looking at Ohio State thinking, well, they've got the players because they've always had the players. They've got the coaches because they've always had the coaches. They just don't have the titles. What's missing? And from a Michigan perspective, would say, well, probably culture. And that's what I'm going to continue to say until they can prove that doing it their way, they can bring in what they need to win a title and achieve that result.
And I realize too that Feldman just kind of glosses over what you've been worried about for a while, that the game is no longer the deciding factor. It's really just
Yeah.
another game now. Which is kind of sad, but hopefully well, actually, let me ask you this. Way too early prediction. Who wins that game in November, Michigan or Ohio State? Ooh, is it a toss up?
I think it's a toss up.
Ooh.
I mean, if Alex Orji can hit 62% pass completion, I think Michigan wins. If Will Howard can evade the Michigan defense, then Ohio State wins. That's what I think. That's what I think right now. It is impossible to say. Right now it's a toss up.
Yeah. All right. Well, what do you think about what we think? Leave a comment and let us know. If you want more great analysis on college football, check out John D'Adamo's Tuesday night live stream, TJ Ronan's Thursday night call-in show, and Smash the Numbers with Ferris Khan, all right here on Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football. You can catch Mac and I live Monday nights on the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show channel, right here on YouTube. Mac, take us out.
This is the Point a Minute show on the Voice of College Football.